Hi, everybody. This is Ron, and I've got a bit of allergies today, so I sound a little bit like I have a cold, but just ignore that, please. We have Carrie's images here. She posted them in her project folder, and there was a lot of fluctuation in color. So I took the bulk of them here that she uploaded the raws for, and I'm going to show you how to post process so that we shouldn't get that post process. I mean, they were all over the place. They weren't even close. First thing we want to notice here in the camera raw defaults is that they're not real consistent. These two are consistent. See how they look the same? This one's much darker, and in trying to determine why that is, if we click on it, we can see this one was done at 5.6 and 1/25th, and this one was done at 4.5. So it could be, Carrie, that you shot this, saw the histogram was too dark, showing underexposure, and you opened up, and that's actually a wise thing to do. Providing that that was just kind of an initial test and looking at their expressions and things. I imagine it was. I often just shoot one, take a look at it, and then adjust. However, because I'm set up for 4.5, I would have started at 4.5. But anyway, it's kind of neat that we have one that's different because I'll show you how to handle that too. So this is 4.5, 4.5, 4.5, same. Oh, now we went to 5.6. And let's realize why you did that. You probably shot this, saw your histogram looked good, went to this, and your histogram was peaking over on the far right. And why would that be? Because you brought in your white props, and your main light is now going to really reflect off this white here. So you close down, but what you have ultimately did there was underexpose the face slightly to properly expose the whites. So number one, they're out of key. They really don't belong there with his black tux. But you didn't want them to blow out, so you brought it down, and that's kind of a trade-off. We should probably keep it consistent at 4.5. However, you don't really want those blown out either. So it was probably a good call again. But after you pull the white out of the pose, go back because here you're at 5.6 because of the whites, and here you pulled the white out and you're still stuck at 5.6. So you should have went back to your 4.5. So 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, 5.6, and it looks like you shot the rest of the session that way. So really, it would have been wise to, if you can't remember to put it back, then I wouldn't change. I'd just let this blow out a little bit and adjust that in Camera Raw settings because you really want to make sure everything else comes out good. All of these look like they got pretty dark shadow, and we can deal with that too. So anyway, let's pick one. We don't want to pick this as our, we don't want to pick this first one because it's the only one that's really super dark. So we want to pick a good middle of the road and one that has good skin tone. Let's go with this one. And I'm going to double click it here. And here we go. Let's see. Histogram's not too bad. We can push the exposure up, and it's looking too light, but I'm going by the histogram here first. The blacks are pretty blocked up, so we could push them back, or let's leave them for a bit. Let's bring our contrast down. And brightness down because she looks washed out. Let's bring color up. It helps us see color differences. And now that we see it, I can see that he's quite a bit warmer in flesh tone than she is. She's very pink and pale, and he's very yellow, so it's a difficult situation. And what we're going to want to do here is go in between the two. She's not going to be perfect. He's not going to be perfect because we're going to be somewhere in the middle. And we're watching that histogram still. I'm going to boost it again because making some of these other adjustments have brought it down. The blacks are still pretty blocked up, and they're peaking up here. So just because it was a bit underexposed when shot, I'm going to bring those blacks down a bit. Let's repush those whites. We're looking pretty good here. Up in the color just a touch. I like my vignette settings, so I'm going to click the lens tab here and just throw some vignetting in there. That almost seems like a little much. And let's look at the histogram again. Again, I'm pushing here to get this right up there in the white range. That's got the warning. This says reds are blowing out. So we don't really want that. We're going to back it off a touch. There, we don't need recovery. A little fill would help bring some light into those shadow areas. Boy, that's helped a lot. And it seems a little yellow. She looks pretty good, but he's yellow. But let's just back that off a touch. And, I'm not after perfection here. I'm after a good all-around setting here. So Let's just go with that and say done. And those settings will be applied. Now here's why you shouldn't have one shot. One of your shots was, pretty good color, and the rest were really poor, and this is why. Once we have that one adjusted, select all. I just selected essentially the first one, and on PC you hold shift and you select them all. So however you select them all if you're using Apple. Now I right click on any one of them and I go down to develop. Camera raw defaults would put us back to normal. Previous conversion, that's what we want. So we're going to do the conversion settings that we just did, the previous conversion. So I'm going to click that, and if you watch each of these, it's applying the same settings to all the shots. Overall, it should be pretty good. And as we look at them, we see that there's a little fluctuation. At least the color will now be consistent because we have the same color settings. Now these two up here seem a little dark, so let's bring up this one. I'm going to double click on it, and all we're going to do is fine tune a couple that are a little dark, and all it should require is either the exposure, but that's starting to peak the red, so I'm going to keep that down. A little brightness, maybe a little more fill for those shadows, and done. The color was already adjusted, so we don't need to do that. Now I'm going to do the same thing here, develop previous conversion, because I just lightened the other one. This one here, because this one was exposed at 5.6 and this one f4, we would have to push this one again. And if it were a worthy shot, we can see by expressions it's not worth the effort. But if there is some fluctuation and you like this shot, just go in here, and again, you don't have to tweak the color again. Just tweak your brightness settings, and bam, these two are now pretty close and match. This one here, we could have did the same thing, but if we say develop previous settings, it'll be too bright probably. And it is, because this one was underexposed and this one's at 4.5. So you can bring it down to where you like it. Or the other thing would have been, I'm going to click cancel, so it's still going to be too light. Remember, this was the one we adjusted. I'm just going to call it up like that and say done and not adjust anything, because then I can click here, say develop settings previous, and it will then take the settings I just looked at when I said done and apply them here. So these two are the exact same settings. This one here we can look at, looks pretty good, pretty good. This was the one we originally adjusted for, so of course that one's good. But man, they're all pretty good. Now this one went a little dark. Let's go, that was because these were all 4.5. You went to 5.6 to reduce the exposure here on those bright whites, and you didn't change back. So we're going to bump this one a little bit. And same thing, it has the good color already, so we don't have to mess with color. All we have to mess with is, let's play with exposure, but I can see that it's peaking up here, so we don't want that. So I'm going to back that off and bring up brightness to a good level, maybe a little more fill. And this one would benefit from a little more of that, a little more vignetting. So that one looks good. And because we adjusted this first one, these are very similar. So I'm going to click that. She's very light, so I'm going to just click these darker ones. This one's actually a little lighter too. Let's take that one out. Let's do just these, and we're going to do that same thing again, develop previous conversion, and you'll see them all lighten. Now this one actually looks, where's that one? This one looks like it came in a little bit bright from this shot here. Alright, we had adjusted this one, slightly hot, not too bad. This one's pretty hot. So we're going to double click on this one. Main light might have been slightly closer, and you can see it's peaking over here. My mouse is driving me crazy. There we go. Didn't want to work. And I'm just bringing that one down. And now that one looks good. This one, you could do the same. Develop previous. Watch him. There. He looks good. He looks good. She's a little pale. If we do previous, because her skin tone is so much lighter, she will also be too pale. So let's tweak this one just for her. Different subject, different skin tone. Again, we've got We can do our crop and our vignetting. I'm going to up the color a little bit, the saturation on her. I'm going to reduce the pink just a touch. And she looks pretty good right there. We can see the histogram looks good too. Maybe a little yellow. Of course, he's yellow. If you want her to match him, you do a little more yellow than normal, but that looks better. And done. And just that easy, all of these are now post-processed. And if you then do the way I show in my workflow, I select all. I then go into Photoshop and run, let me see if I can do that. I run Studio Zap to make proofs, to make those into JPEGs. I'm going to go to Actions. Let's do Studio Zap, Proofs and Prints. House watermark is already there. Everything is set just the way I want it. I'm going to say Run. I had selected all the images in Bridge, so it knows which ones to process, and it will load each one. Studio Zap just loaded my template, and it's now loading your images. And it's placing my watermark on them and kind of that neat border, the file name, and then it's saving them as JPEGs. So you could do this and then upload the JPEG to Portranet. But what's important here is when you see each one load, look at the color and how it matches from image to image. And once we nailed that color, all we had to do was go into the ones that were a little dark or a little light and adjust the brightness on those just to be consistent and to match the others. And those changes were primarily due to the main light was maybe a little too close or a little too far. Make sure you use that string. And also because of the f-stop fluctuations, you shot some at 4.5 and some at 5.6. Also, while we're making proofs here, I'm going to bring in the directory here. And this is where all your raw files, where all these ARWs are your raw files. And as I applied settings, these XMP files were created for each file. Like this one is 6503, this one's 6503. This is where your color settings are stored. So if you want to start from scratch, just select all and right-click on it and delete all those XMP files, and all your settings will be gone and you can start over again and try it the way I just showed you. And then also, because Studio Zap is running, it created a directory called Proofs. We're going to do extra large icons here. And these are our proofs that it's making right now. Now this Studio Zap template, this is what I do at the end of each day of shooting. I'll take in all the shots of the day and I'll do what I just did to yours. I'll go through and tweak the color, tweak anything that's a little light or a little dark, and then I will load up this template and say make my proofs. Then I do that right when I get home. Then typically it's time to go up and have dinner, so I'll go do that. And when I'm done, I can come downstairs and the proof directory is created. All the proofs are made. All I have to do is select all, drag and drop to PLE, and upload and order my proofs. It's a really quick process. I have to add, these are cropped quite nicely in camera. Good job on that. You'll notice that it's loading the images in their original size, the 4:6 aspect right there. But once it puts it in the template, it's a 4:5. It takes a ½ inch off top and bottom. See how much better it's cropped? A little too tight on top there. You know, but good enough for a proof. If they order from that, you say, oh yeah, no problem, I can put a little space over your head when I recrop it. So, it's all done making proofs. And we can go in here and look at our directory. And there they are. And what's really important here is look at the consistency in the color. There's no blues, there's no goofiness. They all look good. If we double click on this one, it loads in a viewer here, and let's just flip through them quick. Not the best expressions, but look at the color, tone, and settings. There's number 2, number 3. Look how exact these are. 1, 2, I mean, right on color. Even the density due to exposure changes is right on. Next, 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 next. I mean, aren't those awesome? That's it. So that's how you do it. I want to see consistency. See you on Portranet.